So we haven't done a meal in a while, so I'm going to kind of show you one of the meals that I use to prepare when I really kind of need to mix things up and just the regular chicken and rice isn't doing it for me. Had a heavy day of lifting today, did some PRing and some heavy cardio with the Ludus training. So I'm going to allow myself some carbs, but I still want to make sure that everything is good and healthy and that I'm not expending too many carbs in the wrong areas. So I have 3 pans here. I have a little bit of coconut oil in these 2 pans. I'm going to go ahead and turn these on. This is going to be for my vegetables. This is bone broth getting ready for the rice. And then I have my chicken here, which will be 8 ounces. I'm going to make 2 servings. So I got 8 ounces of chicken, a cup and a half of uncooked rice. I have a half a pineapple, some assorted vegetables. This is just kind of for some extra taste and seasoning the sesame sticks. That's going to go in with the vegetables and pineapple. And then I have this pan set aside for my chicken. So we're going to go ahead and turn everything on. Low at first. I'm going to go ahead. This is going to have to boil, so I'm going to turn that all the way on. We're just going to get everything moving in here and get our chicken down so that we can start to slowly add in the process. So we got our chicken down, we got our vegetables in the pan. We're going to go ahead and just add a little bit of salt and pepper to the chicken and the vegetables as well, as I just kind of slowly start to heat up. And then we got our bone broth coming to boil for our rice, so that's not going to go in yet. The pineapple, we still want to have a fresh, flavorful pineapple added into the vegetables when we go to eat it. So the pineapple and the sesame chips are not going to go in until the end because we don't want these just to get soggy and mushy, and then we want the pineapple to still have a little bit of crispness to it. So it's going to take a little while. We're going to go ahead and cover up our cooking, and you can wait just a minute. You can see the broth is coming up to boil, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. And I also like to, even with a little bit of light rice, sometimes even if I'm watching my fat, I like to throw in just a little bit of butter and a little bit of salt into my rice as it's curing. So now we have our rice down. We remember to have our vegetables very low since we know those are going to cook before the rice and the chicken's going to. And I don't like to add any seasonings right off the bat. While the chicken's not done and the vegetables aren't completely thawed, especially if you're using a frozen start. I like to wait until everything kind of loosens up to add certain spices. So right now I'm going to add just a little bit of the teriyaki sauce here, just to slow down some of the water as it boils out and still have some good flavor in it. The chicken's about ready to flip. I'm going to turn them over, but I'm not going to add the teriyaki sauce to the chicken yet until I strain out some of the water that's come with that. And that I'm also not going to add it until I dice the chicken after it's cooked. That way it can actually get into all of the parts of the chicken that'll be exposed once it's diced up. So the chicken's getting close to done. Now that things are heating up, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of garlic powder in on top and just a little bit of ginger as well on top of both the vegetables and the chicken. And then we'll come back now that we have a new side and put a little bit more salt and pepper on the top here. You'll notice I also flipped the jar over. Sometimes hard to get all the sesame seeds to be evenly distributed between here. Sometimes they'll stick up at the top. So if you kind of flip the jar over while you're waiting to put it in, you can kind of regulate some of that because they'll float to the top. Alright, so now the chicken's done, so we're going to go ahead and take that, and just kind of strain all the juices out of it. Then we'll take it off the heat just for a second. And then I'm going to bring it over here and dice it up into bite-sized sections real quick. The rice is coming along. It looks like it's going to agree with us as far as how long it's going to take. The other thing you can do is when it comes to dicing up the chicken, you can kind of jump the gun on it. You don't have to wait till it's all the way done, because you're going to add it back in as you cook it in with the rest of the teriyaki sauce and the vegetables and kind of mix it all together. So it doesn't have to be all the way done. And this is a good way to check and make sure so you know exactly where it's at. And then once I have it diced here, I'm going to leave my pan dry. Then we'll start by adding it back to the pan that it came from at the same heat that it was at. Our vegetables are going to be all done and ready to go, but you can see that all the water that kind of came off of it, we haven't been running at a high enough temperature to boil that all off. So we're going to go ahead and just, again, let as much moisture out of there as we can. Bring it back over here. We're going to kick it up to about 7. We're going to add in just a little bit more teriyaki sauce. And here, now that both pans are dry, we can start adding all of this together. And you're going to kind of, each time you add something, you're going to kind of stir it in and see how much teriyaki sauce you need to add to each one. So I'm actually going to switch this into the bigger pan. Over here, we'll go ahead and shut that off. That'll come in. Make sure this one's high enough. Looks like our rice is finishing up here nicely. And now we're just going to kind of sear all these items together. Add a little bit more. And then, because we just want enough teriyaki sauce to make sure that everything is seasoned with it. We don't want to drown it in there. We just want the flavor, but we don't want too much extra. And the pineapple is going to kind of complement that teriyaki, sweet teriyaki flavor. So now that we got it all together, add just a touch more here. More of like getting it on top for the little bit on the pineapple. Then we're just going to let that sit there at that temperature for a second. It's going to boil out some of the water. We can go ahead and get our plates ready for preparation. Just make sure our rice is ready. We're good. And I tallied up the meal for 1 cup for each meal, which we probably won't take. See, you can still see there's some rice in there. We'll use that later, obviously, in another meal. And this is all ready to add to it. So this, again, is going to be a big meal. You're going to have a lot of carbs with it, a lot of protein. Most of your carbs are coming from the vegetables and the fruit. If you're looking at a large post-workout meal, that fruit's going to be very good for recovery. And those carbs are going to be positive for you as you're looking to be strong into your tomorrow, and you have plenty of protein here. So I'm not going to leave, or I'm going to intentionally leave a lot of the sauce in the pan. So that's your meal. And if you tally it up, I have it, this is for two equally split meals. Obviously, I'm going to eat a little bit more tonight. But you have 81 grams of protein, 88 grams of carbs, again, mostly coming from the pineapple and the vegetables. And then, of course, the rice, and some come from the sesame chips. And you have 23 grams of fat. So when you've been eating nothing but plain chicken and rice all week, and you really want something that's going to taste good, but isn't going to take you out of your comfort zone as what's already in your fridge. People always go out and buy stuff for that cheat meal or to spruce things up, and they wind up going out and getting too much, and then they have stuff in their fridge that they don't need in their daily diets. This is all stuff that can come from your daily diet, other than maybe the sesame chips, which is something that I added in just for flavor. You know, this is the best way to eat, so that you're using the stuff that's already acceptable in your diet, that's in your fridge, in order to, you know, have a more exciting meal.